All right, let's dive in. You guys really wanted us to break down the Law and Order episode, Breach of Trust. And to be honest, I get it. It really gets under your skin and makes you think, you know? I think that's because it taps into those, like, basic human things. We've all felt them, right?
Yeah.
Loyalty, betrayal, that feeling when you're pushed so far you don't know what you do. So, yeah, let's unpack this thing. We've got all the sources here ready to go from that very first scene to the final verdict.
Yeah, I think breach of trust is so powerful because it uses a crime, a murder, to make you look at these big systemic problems. We're not just watching a mystery unfold. It's like we're seeing how the choices people make get all tangled up with corporate power and, a healthcare system that doesn't always have patients' best interests at heart.
Absolutely. And speaking of setting the stage, we open up in this luxury penthouse in Manhattan. Victor Hamlin's place, CEO of Titan Health, his massive insurance company. But he's not enjoying the view, is he?
No, not at all. You can see right away that a struggle happened. Furniture's overturned, glass everywhere. And in Hamlin's hand, a blood-stained letter opener. That tells you right away.
Right.
This wasn't random. There's rage, there's violence. And whoever did this knew Hamlin personally.
Okay, so now we've got this high-stakes investigation. And enter Detectives Briscoe and Green Briscoe. Classic Briscoe. Cracks a joke about Hamlin having a bad nightcap. But Green, he's locked in on those initials on the letter opener. LM. It's like they're following a trail of breadcrumbs, right?
Yeah.
Deeper and deeper into the case.
It's total Law and Order, right? Those initials are the clue.
Yeah.
And we, the viewers, we're already trying to figure out who is LM? How do they connect to Hamlin? And as Briscoe and Green start digging, they figure out Hamlin wasn't exactly Mr. Popular. His cost-cutting at Titan Health, it made him a lot of enemies.
Yeah, Hamlin, his reputation precedes him. And this is where things get really interesting, right? Because it's not just corporate drama. We meet Leonard Martone. He was friends with Hamlin, worked at Titan Health. His story is just, it's heartbreaking.
Totally. And this is where personal stories and the big system, they crash into each other. Martone's daughter, Emily, she's got this rare illness, needs super expensive treatment. And then Hamlin comes in with his cost cutting. And guess what gets cut? Emily's coverage.
It's awful. You can just imagine how desperate Martone must have felt when your kid's life is at stake. You're backed into a corner.
Yeah.
And the episode shows that struggle, We see Martone's emails to Hamlin begging him to reconsider. This isn't about money. This is a father trying to save his daughter.
Exactly. And it makes you think, how far would any of us go in that situation? Where's that line between right and wrong? When you're desperate, Martone's trapped, and as viewers, we're watching it all unfold.
Yeah, and it all comes to a head on the night that Hamlin is murdered. Briscoe and Green, they find evidence of a fight between Hamlin and Martone. There were harsh words, maybe even threats. And when they confront Martone again, he breaks down. He confesses to the fight, but he swears he never wanted to kill Hamlin.
It's such a tense scene. You can just feel the weight on Martone's shoulders, the grief, the guilt, just the exhaustion of fighting a system that seems rigged against him. So the question is, was this a crime of passion? Or was there something more planned going on?
And then the case lands with Jack McCoy, the DA. He's famous for his tough stance and his passion for justice. But even McCoy seems shaken by this one.
Right. What's so interesting here is that McCoy, who's usually so black and white, is facing a real moral dilemma. He's got a dead CEO, a seemingly straightforward case. But then you've got this desperate father driven to the edge by a system that's failed him. And I think that's the question hanging over everything. What does justice really look like here?
A great question.
Yeah.
And that question leads us right into the courtroom. And we're back. So Leonard Martone's confessed. The stage is set for this courtroom battle. And with Jack McCoy leading the charge, you know it's going to be intense.
Yeah. This trial and breach of trust is like a mini version of that bigger fight between big corporations and everyday people. McCoy, he wants to hold Martone responsible for killing Hamlin. But he also sees a chance to expose how ruthless Titan Health really is.
And McCoy, he goes for it. He lays it all out how arrogant Hamlin was, how he just didn't care about the human cost of his actions. And he brings in those emails from Martone, those desperate pleas for his daughter's coverage. It really drives home the fact that Hamlin knew exactly what he was doing.
But the defense lawyers, they're not just going to sit there. They paint Martone as this sympathetic character, a father who was pushed too far by a system that failed him and his daughter. They really play up the emotions of it all.
Yeah, all these witnesses testify about Emily Martone's health, how her life was on the line because of what Titan Health did. The courtroom becomes this place where cold, hard profit bumps up against the real human cost of those decisions.
And the defense, they really hammer home Titan Health's strategy. They even have this scary name for it: delay, defer, and depose. It's all about making as much money as possible, right? By delaying or denying claims, they force patients and families into these long, expensive court battles. It's awful, but it works.
And you can see McCoy thinking. He realizes this case isn't just about Martone. It's about making Titan Health answer for creating a system that takes advantage of vulnerable people. He grills those Titan Health execs, makes them admit how cold and calculated they were, how they saw patients as dollar signs, not human beings.
It's such a smart legal move, but it's also a moral statement. McCoy is trying to show everyone just how heartless this corporation is, how profit always comes before compassion. You can feel the tension in that courtroom as he breaks down the perfect image of these execs, reveals the messed up morality underneath.
And the jury, they're clearly wrestling with it all. They're looking at the evidence, but they're also thinking about what's right and wrong. In the end, they find Leonard Martone guilty, but not of murder. They convict him of manslaughter, which means they recognize there were special circumstances.
It's a complicated verdict. On the one hand, Martone's held accountable for a death. But that lesser charge, it suggests the jury understood why he did what he did. They saw that he was failed by the system, a system that should have been there to help him and his family.
Yeah, and the impact of this trial goes way beyond the courtroom. When the verdict comes out, when people hear about what Titan Health was doing, there's outrage. People protest outside their headquarters, demand changes in the insurance industry. It feels like something has to give.
This is where breach of trust becomes more than just a crime show. It's a commentary on how our society works, the power dynamics, the ethical choices we all face. And it asks us, the viewers, to look at our own place in these systems, the choices we make, the consequences that come with them.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. So we've seen the crime, the investigation, the emotional roller coaster of the trial, and then that complicated verdict. But breach of trust doesn't stop there. In the last part, we're going to look at the lasting impact of this episode, how it still resonates with people, even all these years later. And we're back for the final part of our deep dive. So we've gone through the whole story of breach of trust, right? From that crazy crime scene to that trial that really makes you think. But the thing that sticks with me, and maybe with you too, is that it doesn't just end there. It's like the episode starts something, and those effects keep rippling outwards.
Yeah, that's a great image. Breach of trust doesn't try to give you easy answers. It starts a conversation that goes beyond the courtroom, beyond the show itself. It makes us think about the systems we're all a part of, the choices we make, what kind of society do we want to live in?
Totally.
And you see that in the last few scenes of the episode.
Right.
All that public anger after the verdict, people protesting Titan Health, everyone calling for change. It shows that people were paying attention. They saw how this individual tragedy connected to those bigger forces at play.
And that's what makes this episode so powerful, even now. It taps into this fear we all have, that the drive to make money can sometimes crush basic human decency, compassion. And it asks us, is that okay? How much are we willing to let that happen?
Exactly. Breach of trust was on TV years ago.
Right.
But those questions, they feel even more relevant now, don't they? It's like every day there's another news story about corporate greed, healthcare systems failing people, individuals getting crushed by these huge impersonal forces.
And I think the episode is challenging us in a way. It's not enough to just watch and feel angry. We have to take that feeling and do something with it. Ask ourselves, what can I do? How can I make things better, even in my own little corner of the world? How can we fight for a world that's more fair, more compassionate? Man, that's powerful. And it's why I love doing this deep dive thing. We take something like a TV episode, we break it down, and we find these layers of meaning that connect to our own lives, to what we believe in.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up our look at breach of trust, I'm left wondering, how has this episode changed your perspective? What will you take away from it? Maybe it'll spark a conversation with your friends or renew your commitment to a cause you care about. Or maybe it'll just make you more aware of the choices we make every day and the ripple effects those choices create,
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Well said. And to everyone listening, I hope this deep dive gave you some new insights into breach of trust. Maybe even inspired you to look at the world in a new way. Thanks for being here. And until next time, keep asking questions. Keep diving deep.